I feel the same way. It's interesting because I'm obviously I see it from a different part of the process on the lending side, but I'm running into some clients that may not qualify and aren't looking, other clients who do qualify and haven't bought a house before. But I feel like it is very interesting trying to decipher the psychology of buyers in this current climate, because if you pay attention to the mainstream media or the news or really a lot of the reports out there, the main thing I hear if I pay attention to anything housing related is just unaffordability crisis, never been a worse time to buy, nobody can qualify. It requires fill in the blank income per year to qualify for a house in this state. And I'm often like, kind of true, not true. Like it's interesting for me even deciphering through some of the claims and the information that's made, but it seems fairly resounding negative news from the media out there. A lot of negative energy out there for people who are considering buying their first home. And then it's interesting when I talk to somebody who's bought a home recently, a lot of them are considering being investors in the long term and having rental properties. And so whether it be maybe going to try to buy a separate property as an investment, but that is, as you guys know, more difficult to qualify for. A lot more of them are considering transitioning that first house that they've done so well with into a rental, and then just moving and buying something that might fit their family better.
All right, welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. We are here sitting with a familiar face, our boy, David Keller. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys doing?
The third co-host of the Pursuit of Property podcast.
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is.
Is this 4?
I think you're more than 4.
At least 4.
Okay,
yeah, at least 4.
She was like, what are you going to talk about? I was like, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Well, how's your day going?
It's been good, man. Yeah, just got back from a little coastal trip. Went to Carmel with the wife and some friends, played some golf. Yeah, had a great weekend. How about you guys?
I feel like every weekend you're out kicking it, bro.
I wish.
Almost every weekend.
I wish. No, I'd say solidly once to twice a month. The other 2 weekends, Sadie is usually corralling me at home and having me rest, which means just like not going to meet people.
It's the honey-do list. It's good.
Mm-hmm. Well, Keller, we're having you back on. We had a discussion, and honestly, we should have listened to the podcast going into this of our prediction from the start of the year.
Yeah.
But almost better is we don't even remember exactly what our prediction was.
We can keep shooting from the hip, and we'll never know if we were wrong or right.
We don't need to.
You guys can hold us accountable. It's fine, but let's roll with it.
We're having this podcast halfway through the year, a little bit more than half.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see at the end of the year what ends up happening. Mm-hmm. But fill us in from the lender side of real estate and from the retail side that you're part of. Mm-hmm. Fill us in a little bit on kind of what you've been experiencing over the last few months and kind of what trends you've noticed into the summer. And now as we're kind of towards the tail end of the summer, I just want to hear what you're thinking may happen.
Yeah. So it's interesting because obviously without going into politics, there's a lot of political stuff that's affecting, the entire, I would say, world, not just America. There's elections occurring all over the world. And so I think there is still a lot of uncertainty about how things are going to progress and depending on who gets elected, right? Nobody knows who's going to be elected or exactly what policies they're going to have and how that's going to affect things. So I definitely feel like there is some uncertainty with the lenders, unsure exactly as to where interest rates are going to go and where demand is going to be. And kind of same thing for buyers as well. So I definitely see some clients that are still waiting for, quote unquote, perfect circumstances or, I need the rate to be here or X, Y, and Z. But I have a good amount of clients that are still projecting home values to increase on a local level. And so, yeah, I still have people that are out there buying their first home, buying investment properties, moving up to a new house and transitioning their first house into a rental property. So there is absolutely still business occurring, but I think it is not nearly as widespread. The demand is not nearly as widespread as we had seen, which I'm not very surprised by. What are you guys seeing on your side? I know you don't only operate in the retail side like I do, But from the transactions that you've been a part of, what are you guys seeing on your side?
Dude, on the investment side, so obviously on the two sides of our coin, when in terms of fix and flips, right? Properties that are going to the market, freshly rehabbed, freshly renovated. It's been really weird, dude, on a local level. Very, very weird. We've had a couple really nice properties, one of which that's been listed since the end of April. And we just now, as of last Friday, finally accepted an offer after, a $5,000 price reduction, a month in.
What price point, if you don't mind me asking?
We're sub 360.
Okay. Yeah.
And
That seems like a competitive price point. That's interesting.
And then we have, other ones where we go a weekend. We've got one in a higher price point, like 900. And we went through a weekend and had an accepted offer like that. And that's a price point where, like you're talking about, that's either an upgrade buyer or a very, very, very well qualified first time home buyer, potentially. So, damn, hey, I don't know. I don't know out there, bro. You never know with all those rich Clovis North kids out there, bro. You never know.
I want to tag on to what he's saying. I think what's been interesting about like our investment business is some of the staple properties that we would consider our bread and butter. The homes in like 93702 down by the fairgrounds, the homes in 93726. This is kind of in between 41 and 168 and 180. These are the types of homes that we've always found sell quick. And I can say like Maywood sat, Mono sat. Stuff that normally flies off the shelf is sitting. And at the same time, we have a property like we had one over off Bullard and West. We listed it within a week and a half. It went over asking, appraised, and gone. So it's hard to say exactly what's causing that.
Yeah.
But there's been a weird supply and demand chain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's very true. I don't know that you guys are picking up and trying to relist lots of properties sub 300, but I feel like the sub 300 market is still crazy. I think that's kind of the new first time buyer price point. If you're looking for like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Fresno, would you agree?
One of ours was a 300K.
Like at 300.
And we still had a hard time selling it, which was strange. It wasn't a lack of potential buyers.
Yeah.
I think location played a big part.
Yep.
But even then, like, we sell stuff in that area all the time.
Yeah.
So there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason that you are able to decipher. It just is odd.
We haven't fully figured it out.
Yeah. I feel the same way. It's interesting because I'm obviously I see it from a different part of the process on the lending side, but I'm running into some clients that may not qualify and aren't looking, other clients who do qualify and haven't bought a house before. But I feel like it is very interesting trying to decipher the psychology of buyers in this current climate, because if you pay attention to the mainstream media or the news or really a lot of the reports out there, the main thing I hear if I pay attention to anything housing related is just unaffordability crisis, never been a worse time to buy, nobody can qualify. It requires fill in the blank income per year to qualify for a house in this state. And I'm often like, kind of true, not true. Like it's interesting for me even deciphering through some of the claims and the information that's made, but it seems fairly resounding negative news from the media out there, a lot of negative energy out there for people who are considering buying their first home. And then it's interesting when I talk to somebody who's bought a home recently, a lot of them are considering being investors in the long term and having rental properties. And so whether it be maybe going to try to buy a separate property as an investment, but that is, as you guys know, more difficult to qualify for, a lot more of them are considering transitioning that first house that they've done so well with into a rental, and then just moving and buying something that might fit their family better. And I mean, people have to buy and sell. I think that's something that was interesting going into this market. I had never experienced a market like this in my 7-8 years in the industry. And so part of me was like, wow, the faucet's going to be shut off completely if rates go up to the 6 or 7 range. But people still need to buy and sell houses. They still have life-changing events, whether they're getting married or having kids or getting divorced or downsizing or moving to be for a closer to a job or family. Transactions are still happening, but those people that have been on the sidelines, I feel like there's a lot of them still seem to be sitting on the sidelines waiting for the perfect time.
Yeah, I think we all had in the last prediction podcast we had, I think we all said that we felt like rates were going to start trickling down. Mm-hmm. I think something that you referenced earlier has played a part, which was the political instability. Mm-hmm. I think that plays a big part as why rates haven't come down. And I also think they haven't been forced to bring rates down because exactly what you're saying. There's been still a decent amount of transactions just from the necessities, the death, divorce, baby, relocation, marriage. I think those are all of them, right? Those are like the main things. But if I think about all of our transactions that we've been having, it's all those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of a single person that's transacted that hasn't had one of those play a part. And exactly what you're saying too. What's interesting is a lot of our clients are keeping their previous house. And you and I were talking with a client the other day. They wanted to sell their other house, and we just showed them the simple math of why it wouldn't make sense to sell it. And now they're keeping it, right? So I think there's also a part of it where people are wising up to the idea of like those homes that they bought prior to 2020, I mean, are just grand slams now.
Well, in that scenario too, or either that scenario with the client you guys are sharing, or I mean, that's not the only client that you've helped this summer with rates being crazy high, keeping their current place and then buying the next place. Where's the money coming from for the second place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it depends. So I think that's something that I've had to learn a lot about in this higher interest rate, but also higher equity market that I didn't train for. Like, because I got licensed at the end of 2016. So you think 2017 through 2020 was, I think, fairly a stable market, at least from my perspective, where it
very
seemed like
similar.
Yeah, buyers and sellers seemed like they had a little bit of balance, right? In between who had the power in the transaction.
I actually think buyers had a little bit more weight too.
I think they did.
Because I remember even then it was very common. The wait time would be 40, 60, 70 days on market.
Yeah, I think that it was, if you were going to say it was probably tipped a little bit in the buyer's favor, not outrageous. Yeah. And then COVID hit and it just slammed it all the way to the max for a seller to have almost all of the power in the transaction. So it almost feels like, it's such a fascinating thing to be a part of, because you see those memes where they're like, sellers think it's 2020, buyers think it's
2008.
Yeah, 2008. They think all the homes should be on sale. Sellers still think they should get all the money for their house. So trying to be educational, and like you talked about the clients that we worked with that were going to sell their house, just walking them through the reality of historically what home values have done, what interest rates have done, what is projected in the future. We don't know for sure, but it's, I think, mainly just educating people in the process. And then to answer your question, what I've had to learn to use for a lot of clients who are trying to maybe move up to another house and yet still keep their first is some kind of way to access that equity. Right. So sometimes people are very disciplined and they still have the savings in their own, bank account or 401k or investment stocks, whatever, to go buy that step up house. But a lot of times that money is saved in their home. And so a lot of clients have been looking into doing things like home equity lines of credit or something similar. So where they can access some of the equity on their departing residence and then basically just use that money to go buy the replacement. And then boom, you have a tenant helping you pay off the mortgage of the house you're renting out. And if there's extra, maybe even helping you pay off that equity payment as well, that home equity payment.
And I think the other part to that is a lot of the houses are renting very, very quickly. Like there is no lack of demand for rental housing, especially if you have like a 3-bed, 2-bath that you're able to rent in kind of like a Fresno or a Clovis. I mean, you're going to get 18 to 2,300, 2,400. I mean, in nicer areas, 3,000. And you think about how that affects the cost for the client who's getting an upgraded home, right? That mortgage may feel horrible at $4,000 or $4,500, but I mean, a lot of these people are pulling in like $700 to $1,000 a month in like cash flow.
Yeah, depending on what their mortgage is, how long they owned it, exactly.
It makes a very big difference on if somebody their lifestyle can afford to make the step up.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's I feel like I've been having these conversations all the time for the last 2 years, really. As equities increased and interest rates increased, the people that own homes, honestly, and I've talked to a lot of realtors about this, I think you guys as well, but I've talked to a lot of my realtor partners, and I'm just like, hey, looking for new first-time home buyers is great. And I'm always happy to help someone buy their first home. But we have a whole group of people who believe in home ownership, have qualified at least once before. It's probably worth having a conversation with them and seeing if they're open to the concept of, becoming a investor or a landlord and building wealth through real estate in that way. Because it's something that I feel like you guys believe in, I believe in. It's sometimes even not at a detriment to you, but you would have made more money theoretically, really, not even theoretically, selling that house and helping these clients purchase another one would have been 2 transactions for you.
I would have made 15 grand more.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have felt 15 grand better.
No.
I mean, it's like, at the end of the day, good advice here plays a big part. And no, I just think like, I wouldn't feel good telling them not to keep it because they can't replace that deal that they have.
Yeah. It's an incredible situation that people are put into. And I totally get why people would sell, take the equity, roll it into the next house, pay off debts,
no judge,
have savings, whatever. Everyone's plan and goals and what their risk tolerances are a little bit different. So I totally respect that. But I think a lot of it really is educating past clients or people who just own homes that maybe we haven't helped them with that first transaction on what their options are and understanding the tax, situation as well. Oh, well, if I, sell it in a year or two, how much am I going to owe in taxes? Well, possibly 0. It depends, right? Talk to a CPA. But there's real situations where you can set yourself up with a kind of golden parachute on that investment property, and then try your hand at being an investor, try your hand at property management or hiring someone to help you with that. And if it's really not for you, you don't have to keep doing that long term.
Well, and I think that's the value too of connecting with a professional, right? Like this client, as an example, had you 2 professionals in their corner to be able to help educate them on why keeping it was a better idea and breaking down the math for them. But I feel like it's also interesting too, because you may have these pool of buyers where maybe they're not locked into the crazy low rates of 2020, but maybe they're in that, medium rate between those low rates and these high rates.
That's me.
Where if they encounter one of these things where they do need to make the upgrade, where it may not make sense to make it a rental. You know what I mean? It wouldn't
make sense for somebody like myself at 5, and the step up from 5 to 7 would hurt, but it's easier to overcome than
2.875.
Yeah, 2.8 to 7. Yeah. I want to transition this conversation because I think this is going to be very interesting to go back and listen to. We're going into a very, very unique presidential election. Obviously, at the time of filming, there was the shooting, the hot swap, Biden out, Harris in. Mm-hmm. The polls went from being fairly predictable to completely scrambled.
I'd say a toss-up from at least what the polls say, yeah.
I mean, it's too early to know, right? So I'm curious, not getting into the politics of it, but getting into our opinions going into the second half of the year. Where do we think the money is to be made? Is it buying property? Is it selling property? Is it holding still? What do you guys think going into the latter half of this year?
Let's hear from the guests. Hit us.
I get to go first. I'll go first. In terms of, I feel like it's tough for me to exactly predict values of homes, right? But if in terms of you asking me, what do I think is going to happen? I don't know that there's going to be a huge difference on a local level to property values depending on who is elected. I honestly don't foresee there being significant changes in that regard. I think there could be some differences in terms of maybe how the Federal Reserve approaches the interest rates. Depending on who's elected, but I mean, they say that they're not swayed by whoever's in charge, but I doubt that is 100% accurate.
Shut up, Jerome Powell.
Yeah, exactly. Poor Jerome Powell. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen values wise moving forward, but I would be surprised if we saw any kind of a price correction on a local level for home values. So I feel like holding long term is still the play that I would encourage people to do personally.
So hold still.
I would say, like, if you're talking about like keeping a property or selling it, I would say I think if you were able to manage keeping the property over the next few years, I think it's likely, and a lot of reports out there are saying the same thing, that on a local level, home values will probably increase 3 to 4%, which I feel like is
Standard.
fairly standard. So not that tough of a guess for them, I guess. Hey, we think that the expected thing's going to happen, but I think that it's likely that home values will continue to increase. I think if you're looking to get a decent deal, I do think that home values, if you don't buy before that happens, I think naturally as interest rates come down, I think values are going to take up some of that space that monthly savings, is going to be at. It's not like home values are just going to stay static as it becomes less expensive to buy a house. I think it will then increase, maybe not exactly one for one, but I think we will see a part of the appreciation is going to be due to some interest rate cuts that, if I was guessing, I think we'll see maybe 1 or 2 small ones before the end of the year. I don't think we'll see anything massive. But yeah, I think the odds for there being a rate cut before the election are fairly high. Whether or not they're going to be correct or not, they're fairly high. I would guess that they're going to come after the election.
Well, and it's interesting what you say too, because all of us are proponents of this, and I think it boils down to just our basic opinion of real estate in general is just getting in the game, right?
Yeah.
Like you just helped me purchase my personal residence. Extremely uncomfortable. The stars are not aligned.
Fun. It wasn't fun.
It's fun now looking back, but it's like, you know what I mean? Because I did not want to be caught with my pants down in a scenario where, okay, rates are going down. All right, I feel ready. And then now I'm going up against 4 or 5 other offers in, a home in a great neighborhood that's, priced competitively. That's something you like. I mean, dude, we look at how the rest of the year will play out. I had a seller reach out to me, and I actually did an investment deal back with her during COVID. And she's like, okay, I have this house. When should I sell it? I'm very worried about the election. I'm very worried about how things are going to be in the next few years. And I'm like, look, if you look at the graph of home values, right? There's always going to be those fluctuations. Mm-hmm. But that line minus 2008, where there was a little bit more of a drop, but even then, accounting for that, the line is an upward trend.
The trend is still upwards.
The line is still an upward trend. So regardless of the type of market that we're in, there's going to be that minor fluctuations where, sure, could you get a better deal here as opposed to 6 months later, or 3 months later, or whatever is going to happen? I'm still a proponent of there's going to be great deals this fall and heading into the new year. Mm-hmm. I don't think the election, stress about rates should prohibit anybody from buying. There's always going to be opportunity in any market. And I know that's a pretty big blanket statement, but even then, I don't think that rates are going to cut down enough on a separate topic for some of the people who may be at these, medium or even higher rates like myself. I still think it's going to take at least a year, maybe year and a half, to where it makes sense to actually do that to complete a refinance.
Yeah, I think you're accurate. It's interesting because I had a client just reach out to me today about maybe doing like a streamline VA refinance. And he's asked me about it before in the past, and I was like, I don't think that's going to pencil out for you. I don't think it's going to make sense. But when he closed last year, I think it was October, he ended up having like somewhere around a 7% or so interest rate. There are lenders out there that are offering certain kind of incentives for streamline FHA or VA refinances. And I think a lot of that for me is like signaling that they are betting on the market starting to come down interest-wise in the future, and they're wanting to get ahead of that, right? They want to capture some of that business before the interest rates start really dropping, and everybody is at that point. So there are, like for him, it's very likely that it's going to pencil out, and he's going to save without paying points probably around a full interest percent. So his payment should drop around $250 a month or so. So there are certain circumstances where I think it could make sense for you to refinance depending on what type of loan you have, where you locked it in. But it really has been odd to watch since 22. I've seen rates over 8 and then down into the high 6s and then back up near 8 and then back. It just is flowing back and forth. So I agree. It's unlikely that for a lot of people, if you caught the rate in the last 2 years somewhere around the middle or the bottom, it's unlikely that you're going to want to refinance for probably another year to a year and a half.
You've got a little time.
Yeah, barring some significant change in interest rates, some huge change, and in that case, I don't think it'll be exactly like we saw in 2020 because I don't think it'll go as low. But if we do see rates significantly drop for some unforeseen reason, then it's going to go bananas again, and everybody's going to be trying to refinance.
I have my prediction. Here's my prediction for what's going to happen.
All right.
Or where I think
I really
the
like that
opportunity
you're looking at
is.
the camera for that.
I was looking at your camera.
Oh, that's mine. Okay, perfect. I was like, I don't know which one. I don't think that one sees you.
Here's my prediction. I think the money will be made going into the presidential election season. And by that, I mean late September through election day. I think people that are putting stuff into contract then, people buying their houses, are going to make some serious cash.
Yeah.
Because I think the market is going to be so uncertain and polarized. I think some people are going to adamantly believe that if Trump wins, it's going to be great. Others are going to say it's going to be bad. And I think it's going to be on the same thing for Harris, right? So I think when that happens, the people selling during that period are going to be highly motivated. They're going to need to sell. There won't be a lot of people willing to take a chance because nobody knows what's going to happen. And I think you and I had a client in the moment. Do you remember who this is? I can't say his name. He bought
give me
in
the
this
scenario. Yeah, give me a
He
scenario.
bought a property, 2-story home in December of 2022.
I think I know
And
exactly.
you and I
was
said,
just looking at his name earlier.
This person is going to make a ton of equity because he bought when nobody wanted to buy.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And not even 4 months later had like a stupid amount of equity. I think that's going to happen again this winter.
Yeah.
I think because of the presidential election, I think because the inherent nature that rates will have to come down soon. I think if you're in the market to buy, keep your eyeball out for potential opportunities during that time frame.
Yeah.
And we had a client literally December 2022, January 23, same exact scenario. It was like that window of time.
Nobody
where
was buying.
Nobody was buying.
Yeah. The deals you can get in those pockets are
Yes.
In
incredible.
uncertainty.
Yes.
And I think there's kind of planned uncertainty coming up September, October, November. Buy if you can afford, right? Don't buy anything you can't afford, but buy. I think it will work out greatly in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, I love that prediction, and I also feel like we have clients even right now that are benefiting from the necessity of someone needing to sell. There not being quite as many buyers as there used to be, able to negotiate seller credits, having appraisals come in very strong. No problem on the appraisal value. It seems like we're already kind of in the beginning stages of that market where there's some strong buyer opportunities, and it's funny being in a summer market when everybody, I think, or not everybody, but so many people were saying to sellers, summer's the time to buy or sell because it usually always is. You're going to get your most bang for your buck selling in the summer. And now it's like, oh, we're having a lot more homes hit the market. And I pay attention to it too because one of my good friends is a real estate photographer. So I hear on the front end how many houses he's shooting.
Side.
And then I'm like, oh, a lot of homes are hitting the market. And then as that comes into inventory that we see and clients see, there's not nearly as much inventory as there could be. I'd say we're still under, but compared to where we were the last 3-4 years, I mean, I feel like inventory wise, you guys would know better than I. Are we at a number that's pretty high if we compare it to the last 3 years?
It's not pretty high, but it is higher.
Relatively.
It's not like double or triple, but it is a little bit higher.
Percentage-wise higher.
Yeah, it is definitely higher.
How you mentioned appraisals, and I'm curious about this. Let's just take backdate it to January or even just over the course of the summer, where we've kind of been going through just this kind of weird market. Have there been any outliers in terms of, dude, I've had a lot of appraisals coming in significantly higher, 10, 20, 30 grand higher. The majority are coming in right at value, or holy crap, there's been a lot coming in that have been under value, and we've had to figure out a way to try and save deals. What have appraisals looked like?
I think I've had, and don't quote me on my own quote, but I don't believe I've had any come in low in the last like 6 to 12 months. I don't think I've had a single one come in low.
Nice.
I have had a good portion. I would say the majority of them are coming in right at value, or maybe 2,000 to 3,000 over. Maybe within 2 to 5, so very close. And then I've had a few outliers, not tons, but some that have come in like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 over. So not a lot, but I've had a few that are coming in a decent amount over, which it just opens up a lot of opportunities.
Yes.
Our last two came in quite a bit over.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's because we're starting to see some opportunity. And by the way, one of them was definitely a seller needing to sell. The other was a multiple offer situation.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
so,
yeah.
I'm still seeing stuff coming in over even in multiple offer situations.
Yeah, I think that goes to show, not to overly, compliment you, but I will.
I can't control that. That's not from me negotiating.
You can't
a great
control it, but I'll say this: is I feel like when we have worked transactions, all of us on different clients over the years, there are scenarios, and I think your clients trust you for this, where they're wanting not just your professional opinion of, is the house decent? Should I make an offer? Is this price good? They really want to know, like, do you think this is a good deal? Does this seem like a good investment? And it makes sense because of your guys' expertise and the podcast and everything else that you do, that they want that help. And more often than not, when you guys are saying, hey, I think this is one of those deals, I think this is something that's really worth looking at, it's not a surprise to me when oftentimes appraisals come in a little bit higher, or they come in very clean without really anything being noted as a negative on the home, that it usually lines up when you guys also feel like that home is a great value.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a gut instinct from just our exposure to the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a strong one.
Going into the end of the podcast, I think we kind of touched on what we all think is going to happen going into the last part of the year. Any recommendations as we're kind of heading out of summer, prepping for people that are going to maybe start looking to buy in the new year, like 2025 and on? I mean, you're a lender. You meet with people a lot earlier on than we do. If people are thinking they want to buy a house in 2025, what stuff do they need to start doing now?
So it depends. So you're saying whether or not it's a new home, like a first home for them, or maybe an investment property, anything.
Just the generics of like, hey, you're getting ready as a lender in our new kind of lending market. Here's what you should start doing.
Yeah, so I would say if you are thinking you're going to be in the market in the near future, let's say 6 to 12 months out, I think that it is worth it and to meet with a lender like myself as early as you can. Personally, I think it eliminates a lot of the questions that you might have, a lot of the confusion. It allows you, and I tell my clients this as well, it's really hard to make a good decision when you're not well informed. It's not impossible. You can still, randomly, hit something in the dark. But I think if you're able to understand what, the current state of the market is, where rates have been and where they seem to be currently, where they're maybe going, if you have somebody explaining to you all of your options, because maybe you're a first-time home buyer, or maybe you want to keep your first home, you don't know how, and convert it to a rental, I think all of those kinds of questions can be cleared up in a 30 to 45 minute, in person or over the phone call, even shorter. But, if you meet up in person and just lay out the whole financial plan, it allows you then to proceed with a lot of confidence that you're well informed and making the decision that's best for you. Because like we said earlier, it's not up to me or your realtor, your lender or realtor to decide what's best for you. It's up to you to make an informed decision based on what you're comfortable with. And so for one client, they might have the exact same financial situation, similar career, similar earnings, savings, etc., but their choice in terms of what they're going to buy or qualify for or how they're going to proceed is going to look wildly different than the next person that I meet with. So I think it really is about meeting with people that you trust, that are knowledgeable, and that can help you really become informed and educated on your current situation, the market as a whole, and then kind of proceed from there.
There it is, dude. There it is.
That was it.
Would you add anything?
No, I would say if you're thinking on the realtor side outside of the lending I think takes a little bit longer for some people. Like you're saying, like creating a plan, knowing, okay, this is where our financials need to be for this to make sense. But I guess if you're looking and you're one of the people thinking about buying, let's do a shorter time frame, like in this September to November time frame. I would start getting the house picked up. I'd start getting those little, like the little things around the house
honey-do
done.
lists. Yep.
Yeah.
Painting the things, cleaning up, decluttering, all that kind of stuff.
Take a moment, walk around your house, write down the list of all those little things that have bothered you in the house that you are aware of. Start working on them 1 weekend at a time. And that way, by the time you go to list the property or rent it out, you don't have to deal with all of that headache. At the same time, I think it's always helpful to keep your eyes on Zillow or whatever app you're using to watch the market. You never know when a really solid deal may pop up.
That's exactly what I was gonna add to is part of being educated, having your team, right, your lender, your agent, right, to keep an eye out for some of these many pockets that might pop up where it is a great, span of a couple weeks, maybe stretching it to a month where it's like, hey, right now you're ready. You've been sitting on the sidelines. You've been prepped, ready to go, ready for something to pop up for the perfect one. You found it. Boom. Pull the trigger, get in the game.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, Keller, thanks for coming on the podcast and sharing your thoughts. This will be an interesting one to go back and listen to and see how it plays out.
Yeah.
And we're going to pre-book the next one. We'll do another one in January or February, and that will be our third in a row.
I think that'll be fun to see the differences in the market. It'll be very fun to look back on this over the next few months and see
what shakes out.
Yeah, see which one of us was right. I think we all are fairly similar.
I think on this one, we're all very similar.
Yeah.
Dude, obviously people who've been listening or watching for a while, they're probably most likely already connected with you on social media. For new listeners, you've been putting out, dude, a lot of good content lately.
I've been trying
You've been up in the content game.
And he's doing a podcast soon.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That is true.
Come on now.
That is
Where can people find you?
Like you dropped that. I would, look me up on Instagram, D Keller and Co, D Keller and Company. So yeah, just look me up on Instagram, shoot me a message, give me a call, reach out to these guys. Yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody, whether it's a realtor, a client, someone looking to purchase a home or invest. I just like talking about this stuff. I really do. And I'd love to talk with you about any questions you might have.
And somebody who both of us trusted in helping us buy our personal homes. So facts, shout out there. There it is.
Facts. Thanks for joining, Keller.
Thanks, guys.